Right, we're live, and we're here for another episode of YEV, and I've got Kevin with me because Alex is tardy today because unfortunately, yeah. So YEV, Kevin?
Why not?
I nearly forgot it, didn't I? So Alex has had a problem with his electric car.
Yeah, he did come down to see me in an EX30, and
yeah, the Volvo, the new one, yeah.
Yeah, the new Volvo, and I had to go with it as well. But then he got a puncher.
Oh well,
my house.
puncher. That must be because they're too heavy, right?
Yeah.
So today's episode, we're going to talk about are EVs fit for purpose? And I thought what I could do is not only myself, but Kevin as well, because I'm sure he gets some negative stuff on some of the posts that he does as well, is focus on the negative comments that I get on my TikTok. It's mainly TikTok, and a bit YouTube as well. And yeah, just have a bit of a, it'd be great for them to join in if they can be live as well. But yeah, we're just going to fight the fun, I suppose, but in a balanced way, because EVs aren't right for everybody. I think the first kind of the only comment where I was just like, okay, well, kind of got a point there, but it was a bit of a what if. So the one that I got recently, Kevin, was, what if you've done a journey and you haven't got much range, you're plugged in, and there's an emergency.
It's a difficult one, really, because I mean, it's one of those what ifs that how likely is it to be? I mean, does everyone have emergencies every day? And you've got to think, when you add in, if you've got a charge at home, how many times are you not going to be charged enough for an emergency? So what kind of emergency would it be that you wouldn't be able to cope with an electric car? I mean, but I can understand why some people would be worried, that they think, oh, I can just nip to a petrol station and then I can carry on my journey. But I mean, how long does that take you, really, by the time you've got in the car, faffed about finding a petrol station? Whereas if you're conveniently charged from home, you'd be ready for that emergency because you could just go. Well, you're on mute. Oh, Tim's on mute by mistake. Rookie error there.
I said, mate, you've absolutely nailed it there. You've literally turned that one around, and it's literally from the top rope, smackdown. Fluffy Gaming, hi, how we doing? Yeah, great weekend. A really exciting video coming this week. An EV car cave. Have you ever seen an EV car cave episode on YouTube before, Kevin?
No, I don't think I have. I've seen lots of petrol car caves.
No. Well, this is an EV car. I'll just give you a quick overview, Kev, and the rest of the audience. Is basically Russ, who I've met a few times. He's got a Tesla-powered Lotus Evora. He's got a car cave, and he has got a original 106 Peugeot electric vehicle, which he has already started upgrading, an electric Ducati, the electric Evora, which I mentioned, the Tesla-powered one, Model 3 motor, an electric Lotus Elise, and to top it all off, an electric lawnmower. So that is coming on Wednesday. So check it out. It's going to be an epic episode. Really good. I get to drive a couple as well, which is great. Or I get to drive one, but we'd go out in a couple. So yeah, that mate, you literally smashed that one out of the park in an emergency. Love it. So yeah, what if you were charged up? You're fully charged, ready to go. So there we go. Money for a car. So keeps coming up all the time. It's just like, oh, EVs are too expensive. I mean, I've only ever bought one new car, and to be fair, I sold it straight away, but that's another story. But electric cars, I mean, you compare, I did it recently, not just for this, just for peace of mind, Kevin, where I looked at, okay, petrol auto SUV, you're talking 14 grand, right? For 2019 under 70,000 mile. You can get a Hyundai Kona starting from like 10 grand now. So I don't think the argument of cost is there. What's your thoughts on it?
I suppose it depends on what you're looking at with costs, because I know there's lots of categories people coming. There's categories of people who just buy new cars. There's categories of people who buy pre-reg, nearly new cars, and then there's categories of people who buy the 3-year-old ones that are, the ones that tend to be just coming off lease. The thing that you're going to struggle with, I think, is I know a category of people who will spend no more than £1,000 on a car or £2,000 on a car. And I don't think EVs have quite got cheap enough yet for that class of market, because there's people I know who would buy a car for £1,000, £2,000 and throw it away when it breaks. And I don't think EVs have got to that level yet. So for that person, there's probably a case that EVs not ready for them yet. But as cars get older, there's going to be EVs. I mean, especially with people shout about the depreciation on EVs at the moment, there are going to be EVs.
Everyone always uses the Porsche Taycan example as well. Like they've heard it. Oh yeah, Porsche Taycan, you know, but you know, it's because you can get better EVs for the same money. It's not a Porsche. It doesn't look like a Porsche. It's not Porsche like inside, but as a good EV, it's not the greatest EV out there, and you can get better ones for the money. But yeah, sorry, I interjected there, mate.
Yeah, and actually we can turn that on its head, because people say that Porsche Taycan loses a lot of money. The Porsche Taycan is a 4-door Porsche, sort of semi-family car. If you look at another Porsche in the range which isn't electric, is the what's it called? The name escapes me. The petrol version of it, the 4-door one, and the name is gone.
Panamera.
Yeah, Panamera. The Panamera, they lose huge amounts of money on the Porsche Panamera because it's a 4-door Porsche. The only Porsche that really kind of looks after its own kind of prices are the 911, because the 911
they're dropping. Apparently, I've heard that you know, they're dropping pretty harsh at the moment. So Fluffy Gaming, let's interact with the audience here, Kev. So we've got Fluffy Gaming. I've got a question. I've always wanted an EV, but they're too expensive. Ideas. Okay, so how much have you got to spend? And where's the money coming from? You looking at a loan? You looking at a PCP, or have you got £2,000 or £3,000 in the bank? Answer that, and then I'll be able to give you an answer on that, Fluffy Gaming. So yeah, I mean, another one that always comes up is, they take too long to charge, and it's like, oh yeah, it takes me 5 minutes in the petrol station, and we hear it all the time. There's no way. I'm going to do a video soon of me taking my missus's car to fill it up, and I can guarantee you it will not take 5 minutes. It will take like 8 to 10 minutes, and I can guarantee you that, again, it's horses for courses here. It depends on the electric car you got. It depends on the charger you've got. But I'm going to only just take my example because it's the only EV I know. So it's the most realistic example. But charging at 250 kilowatts, in 10 minutes, I can get 100 miles at a fast charger. So, you know, and I'll be needing to toilet again after that. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is actually, there's two schools of thought here. One is people say it takes a long time to charge. Well, I can tell you that my car takes less than a minute to charge, because I plug it in and then I go to sleep and it charges really quickly there. So it's, if you've got a home charge, it's not about the time. It's about the time you think. You don't have, again, it's like the emergency thing. You don't have to go somewhere to get fuel. You can't make your own petrol at home.
No.
So, whereas you can get your own electricity.
No, absolutely. Foxhound Folly's just chipped in there. Looked at a 23 Leaf on the forecourt today, 3,000 miles, 16 grand. I'm not, you know, I know where the Leaf is a great car. Obviously, it's the batteries and the CHAdeMO which obviously let it down, and that's the reason why they've you know, come down in price so much. But I thought what we could do while we're waiting for Alex as well is just run through a couple of negative comments on my TikTok recently. No, they're just crap. Is always a good one. So I'm not sure if they are just crap. So let's just go get past that one, because they're not just crap. That's just a load of bollocks. Yet another tax on the poor. Street charging in areas that have no drivers at most should be flat electric rate. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I did a little TikTok on today. I went to my most local AC chargers, which are probably a 8-minute stroll from me, and they're 56p per kilowatt hour. And there's 4 of them. They're 22 kilowatt chargers. Not that most cars can, there's only about 5 cars that can take 22 kilowatts. So essentially they're 7 or 11, depends on what car you got. But there's 4, and there's loads of cars. I saw probably 1 electric car in the vicinity. It's just all kind of like terraced houses, basically. But there was actually, this is a weird one, Kev. There was a Kia Niro, new shape. It was charging and it had a green plate, but he put a blue GB sticker over the green bit, which was really weird. I was thinking, why would you do that? I mean, I don't know. That was the Renault dealership, so not where you get a bargain. Well, sometimes at dealerships, they bring in cars that aren't their particular brand. They're bringing it in and they'll try and sell them cheap. So not the sort of normal OEM dealer prices. Because I've obviously been involved in that before in my motor trade career. So sometimes there is a bargain to get at a, you know, let's say if there's a Kia at a Nissan dealer and stuff like that, it tends to be like slightly better price, and you know you got the same sort of warranty and like kind of, I suppose you be looked after by an OEM dealer,
and that's
which isn't actually being looked after these days because their majority are pretty awful. Sorry, Kev.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that people do think with dealers, that they're always making a profit on a car, and dealers will quite often sell used cars at a loss because it's costing them money on their credit line. If a car's sat there for 6 months, it's unlikely they're making any money on it, and they just want to get it off there. So it's to minimize what they're losing on it, so they will sell cars at less than they've paid for them.
At my previous VAG, so it's a Volkswagen Audi dealer group, we had a very strict overage policy. So at 60 days, it was like get rid. 90 days, go to auction. So they were taking a massive, as we would call it in the trade, massive pill. don't know where that come from. Taking a massive negative on some of the cars, just going to the auction, because then they were getting trade prices. So they were like, you know, the sales managers were really trying to get out of these cars. So it all depends on the dealer because they're all very different. So Fluffy Gaming put 20 grand there. He said he's looking for electric car. What was it? He put, I've got a question. I've always wanted an EV, but they're too expensive ideas. And to say they're too expensive, then give me a 20 grand budget. I mean, for me, Tesla. Obviously.
For me, I'd say you're getting the newer Konas and newer Niros. You know, if you want a more ordinary car that you know you can go to your main dealer for bits, you're talking the Hyundai Kia ranges.
Yeah.
So your 20 grand is going to get you a fairly recent one now.
That's honestly, that could get you a brand new MG5 now. That's the facelift brand new one for 20 grand because they've been reduced by 10 grand. You can now get a facelift Hyundai Kona 64 plate, 70,000 miles for 14 grand. I'm very aware of this market because if you didn't know, people out there, I'm looking for a car to change my missus's car, so I'm out there. I'm going to be on the auction on one day this week with checking out a few cars. So putting a reserve in because I'm working. Alex is, hi guys, nearly home. Alex is on the way, so that's good.
I can't believe he's watching it on YouTube in an Uber.
Is he in an Uber? Is he?
Yeah, an Uber came and got him. Yeah, I'll let him explain the fun ordeal for that puncher, but the Uber is a bit of a clue.
This is an interesting comment. So I will never buy an EV. I will not be forced into having something I don't want. Now, I think the government have really messed up here. I'll tell you where they've messed up, and I don't know if you agree, Kev, but they put bans in. I mean, I see why they've done it, and yeah, it will force change, but people don't like bans, generally speaking. And plus the fact that we've got, I think there's a few things that's gone out there, reference the ZEV mandate. And if people don't know about the ZEV mandate, essentially if dealers, we talked about it before, but just to reiterate, if dealers don't sell in the car market 22% electric out of all the vehicles they register by brand, they get a 15 grand fine. So there's this massive push on dealers, and I think there's going to be some super crazy deals towards the end of the year on PCP and lease and stuff like that. And van, it's 10%. And if you think some of the brands out there, some brands are fine. MG, they're fine. They've got a load of electric cars. Tesla, they don't even sell petrol cars, so they all register electric cars. So it's not an issue. But there's some dealers out there that are really struggling. But I can understand the forcing thing, because no one likes that. But I will never buy an EV. Well, I think, yeah, you get that a lot, don't you? You will never see me in an EV.
And the thing is, those people won't be forced to. The same as if you want to run your classic car, you'll be able to run your classic car. There will be things like e-fuels, which will be designed for those classic cars. And no one's saying they're going to take those off you. And I think that's, you watch a number of YouTube channels and they're all about talking about the cars will be taken off you and things like that. Then that's not going to happen. There's always going to be that classic car thing. And it's, some people will convert to an electric car, a classic car, but some people, the part of the classic car is the thing like that. The original Model T, people haven't modified that. People have those in their collections as they were, even though you could make it so much better. So I think that's the thing. I mean, I'm going back, I've just remembered one thing with the used cars for that budget. There's there's a bargain one, which is a good one to watch out for. Do you remember there was a big recall on a batch of Hyundai Kona batteries because of the LG battery chemistry, battery tab issue?
Yeah.
Well, I know now, because I've had some of the Konas, that some of those, they've actually started to do the UK recalls on those. So you could get, for example, a 5-year-old Kona, which has just had a brand new battery pack in it. So no degradation at all. Not that they show a lot of it, but those are going to be some bargains. The fact that you effectively got the one bit people worry about failing brand new in a car.
Yeah, well, I've not, mate. I've been scouring the web for Konas, and I've not seen anybody put anything about a new battery yet. But I'll keep people updated with that. I don't know if people are hiding that or what have you, but yeah, it's an interesting one. To be honest, I'm only looking at facelift ones because my missus doesn't like the black round the wheels of the original ones. So, she's hard to please, but
slightly more efficient because my wife has the newer one with the color coded round the wheel.
Yeah, nice.
And that'll do. I mean, that's doing 300 miles range easily. And the only change they made to make that efficiency was it went from Nexon tires to Michelin Primacy 4. So it went from like a D-rated energy tire to an A-rated energy tire.
Okay. Well,
so you can kind of make the old ones as efficient.
Well, we're looking at the 39 kilowatt hour battery, which should be fine for her as well. But there's not many higher mileage ones of those, so they're staying at about 12 grand at the moment. Anyone who doesn't want one is going to be fine. Buy a brand new one in 2034. It will still be going in 2055. I'll be long dead by then. Well, yeah, I mean, I think the hybrids will be going for a while. This is an interesting one I want to jump on. So Fluffy, who started the question about the 20 grand car. So if I bought a 20 grand Tesla, would I be able to get one under 20k and a home charger? Now, most importantly, I would say now, and again, I've covered it, but I would not be focusing on the mileage because it's all about, from the battery testing company that I've spoken to with all the data. Oh, my light's gone off. Is that it's actually Tesla batteries degrade more on age than they do on mileage. So whenever I'm recommending to someone when buying a Tesla or any electric car, is don't worry as much about the mileage. Just focus on getting as new as you can for the money. And in terms of a home charge, you can definitely get one fitted for $1,000. But me being the miser that I am, I'd probably try and find one on eBay or something like that, and then get a local electrician who is accredited to fit it, and that wouldn't cost you any more than 500 quid. So, but that's the way I would do it. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at charges for in the day job, some of the sites and stuff that actually, if you want a basic charger, literally, as long as you've got an electrician that can fit one, you can get them significantly under £1,000. You can get them, you can get the chargers now. 300 quid is the cheapest one, unless if you go on to places like CEF Electrical and things like that, just looking at the bare chargers. So if you've got the cable in there, and you've got an electrician that that does other stuff, it is literally, at the end of the day, it's not really, if you've got the right rated cable, it's like the wiring a plug for an electrician. It's not a really difficult job. Hey, we've got an Alex back.
He's back in the room. This is a bit of a swap round, guys, because everyone's in the garage and Alex isn't in the garage.
It'll be another 5 minutes for me to set up out there, so I thought I'd just take the risk. Can't guarantee that I won't be interrupted by kids arriving at some point, And my God, my hair is all over the place from the drama earlier.
Yeah.
So
Fair play. Well, you can get just to answer Fluffy's question. You can get plenty of standard range Teslas for 20 grand. I'm just trying to find a 21 plate which has got the LFP battery. But like I said, I personally wouldn't be focusing on the mileage. Again, I would just, if the short range will do it, LFP battery, just find one with higher mileage, or just get a long range, older shape one with, the best you can get for the money. But I really wouldn't focus on the mileage, Fluffy.
I mean, actually, the lower mileage one can be a lot worse, because what you can get is you can have a car that spent most of its life sat at 100% state of charge, which can be much worse for them.
Yeah.
Like when you get those cars that have been owned by somebody who's only like driven them down the road, like ice cars I'm talking about, like traditionally where you'd have someone would buy a car with like ultra low mileage, and it's like it's never been properly warmed up in its entire life. You give it, you want something that's had a little bit of time, I guess, to be used and cycle properly.
Well, I could give you an example of that. My dad has done 13,000 miles in his VW ID3, and it's 4 years old in December, and it's just gone back on warranty for a battery issue.
Oh, right.
Which is
guessing 12 volt.
No, it's a module or something. Well, I'll have to double check with him, but I don't think it's. Luckily, it's still in warranty. But yeah, this is what makes me think that actually the higher mileage ones are actually probably better news. And like Alex said, there's risk of, if the car's not getting its engine warmed up, there'll be like condensation and all the rest of it. It's going to damage the engine. So I don't get too excited about having a low mileage car, especially. Although saying that, I bought a 70,000 mile 10 plate Mazda petrol auto, but that's been all right. Touch wood. There's a wood somewhere.
I do remember speaking to people in dealerships back in the day, and they used to say the cars that had been hammered were the ones that actually lasted better, because anything that was going to go wrong that had a slight manufacturing defect, that came out in the wash, as it were. So they actually knew, and they said they were the cars that did the ludicrous mileage then afterwards. So they said demo cars were actually, and courtesy cars were actually a lot better than something that was done and driven carefully. Yeah,
Mark, I completely agree with you. But yeah, so that's exactly what I would do with my money if it was like my own money rather than leasing it, what have you, because LFP batteries do last longer, more cycles, etc. But you would have to go for more miles than 20k. But like I said, I don't think it's an issue. Fluffy's back again. Ideally, I would like a Model 3 2021 or newer, as has the new features, as in power boot. Yeah, well, there we go. Go and find a 21 plate LFP short range, and if it's got 40,000 on it, I wouldn't worry. I really wouldn't. So there we go.
I suppose now Alex is back, we can let him explain his ordeal of why he was late.
Yeah, dodgy EVs, I guess, Alex.
Yeah.
Right?
Figured out I've had in the whole time I've been a journalist, I've had 4 cars towed. 3 of the 4 have been electric, and an overlapping 3 of the 4 have been tyre related. So yeah, this was my second tyre related breakdown. I've spent a week last week with the Volvo EX30, which has been an interesting experience. Lots of clever stuff, lots of stuff that's trying a little bit too hard, I think, in some places to be clever. But Volvo Assist's policy with a punctured tyre is to recover it to the nearest dealership. So I was at Kev's house earlier, and the air started rushing out the tyre, and the car is now in a yard waiting to go to Volvo Swansea tomorrow. Unfortunately, there is also a driver who will be leaving Oxford to come here to Cardiff to pick it up. I don't think he's going to find much here. So hopefully they'll be able to redirect them over to Swansea to pick it up. It's only a small puncture. Just it seemed a bit extreme. And I've just come back in an Uber with 2 very tired, very hungry kids in the back. It was all quite exciting.
I can appreciate that. Well, just to give you an update, Alex, because I did change the title probably last minute. And Fluffy, no worries. Have a good one, mate. is we are focusing on, are EVs fit for purpose? So I was going through a lot of my TikTok comments, which are obviously mainly negative ones, and tackling them head on in a balanced way. So that's what we're focusing at the moment. Sound is one that always comes. They sound, rubbish. Sound. I tell you what, I'm starting to change my mind a little bit on the sound thing on EVs, but mainly for your kind of petrol head EVs. I think it's EV enthusiasts. I think it's quite nice to have a sound, to get a bit of feedback. What do you guys think?
I think it's nice to have a sound as long as it's not trying to sound like a petrol engine. I
Yes.
don't want a 4-cylinder engine that's trying to sound like a V8.
Yeah.
I don't want a V8 that's trying to sound like a V12. I'm just picking holes here. But I think EVs sound different. Some feedback is good in a driver-focused EV. I totally agree with that. But I think try and make it sound like a petrol engine, because it's not a petrol engine.
Yeah. No, it's something that... Sorry, go on, mate.
No, I think, we need to get used to the fact they sound different, and they're never going to sound like a petrol engine. So trying to hang on to something for the sake of it, I'm not into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think they should make kind of a more space age sound. I quite liked my wife's original Renault Zoe. When you had the window open, once you went above the fake noise, the motor kind of had quite a purposeful noise. If you were going through like tree line things, you could hear that whine of the motor. And I think actually that sort of noise, I think the main problem is most people have spent, 30, 20, 30, 40 years. Their brains have been conditioned to hear the engine noise. But I think you'll go, once EVs have become the norm, people's brains will be conditioned to hear EVs noise. It's just people have got used to the sound of something. Like I mean, lots of you guys will probably be old enough to remember. Remember when you press the button on a crossing, it used to make that noise, and you kind of tune into that noise. Now they don't make any noise because they've got that little thing underneath them that vibrates.
Do you know what? I never even thought of that. Yeah, because they used to make noise, didn't they?
Yeah, now they don't. But, you miss that noise, and you've got conditioned now that they don't have noise. But, you remember they used to have sound. So it's a different noise, which people will get used to and become accustomed to listen to those. Because people used to say with petrol cars, oh, it's lovely and quiet. And it's like, why is that now a bad thing in an EV that it's lovely and quiet, when people used to say, oh, my petrol car's got a lovely quiet engine?
I get I mean, you may have already covered the soul thing, and the EVs being appliances and things, which is quite one of the things I get quite often. I mean, we've got a very talented 7-seat family bus on the drive now. Were we to buy an ICE version of that vehicle, it would either have a 3-cylinder petrol engine or a 1.5-litre diesel engine. And do you know what? I can live without the sound of either of those. having the noise of a 3-cylinder hum or a diesel rattling away at the front of that car would not make it more or less characterful. In fact, if anything, it might make it slightly less characterful, because I quite like the way that it's quite perky performance-wise and stuff. It's not Tesla performance, obviously, but it's. I think the sound thing is quite doesn't hold much water. It's a very small part of the audience that really give a monkeys about it, and it's a very small number of cars where that really matters. And I just think for those enthusiasts, it's a case of you're never going to get somebody who's a dyed-in-the-wall petrol head to accept a fake petrol noise in an EV. So why bother? And people who don't care about it, and people are quite happy to just buy into the EV thing, probably not that bothered about missing out on the petrol noise anyway. So I don't get who it's kind of aiming for. It feels a bit gimmicky. I'd be interested to see. The only cars that I remember having kind of an audible feedback on was the Mazda MX-30. It actually worked quite well in that, because it wasn't trying to sound like a petrol engine. It would give a kind of a hum that would, if the more you were pushing on in it, you kind of get a bit of an audible feedback to how hard the motor was working. It was fake. It was completely synthesized, but it gave you a sense of just sort of being that bit more in tune with what was going on mechanically, and that kind of worked. But don't try and make it sound like a petrol engine.
You can get them for 10 grand now. I was I went to go and see my neighbour's one, have a look at the boots. It was big enough to get the dog in, but obviously the range is quite a limiting factor. I love the look of them, but you can get them. You get a 21 plate for 10 grand with 30,000 miles on it now. It's like, wow. And knowing that it would be a much better drive than probably the MG ZS that we're looking at, but yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. But I did a video recently on, again, TikTok, and I was saying, look, I think I know why there's so much, there hasn't been as much progress on the EV. I think it's just a lot of people that just are so against it for whatever reason, whether it's they think, you know, they're scared of it, they're worried about the technology, they think the government are going to take their petrol cars away, this, that, the other. They're making so much noise that they are starting to affect things, like in a negative way. Like insurance companies not wanting to, they were absolutely fine with a lot of the charges going in. I think we covered this last time, and then all of a sudden, oh no, that could be a fire risk next to a petrol station. Hang on a minute, it's a flipping petrol station. So all this noise is actually having quite a dramatic impact. So what I thought would be a good idea is just to make as much positive EV noise back.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
If you like, I can search the web for.
Apparently it's going to search the web for me. Yeah, so I think it's just making more positive noises and just batting back this negative rubbish. And most of it is rubbish. You know, I'll wait for hydrogen cars. No, you won't. You won't wait for hydrogen cars. You'll be waiting a very, very long time unless someone invents a way of making them like 4 times more efficient and manages to put the infrastructure in cheaper than it is already. And I'm not going to share the example because it's work related, but there was an example of a hydrogen truck that is going horribly wrong for this particular organization. That's about as clear as I can be. And yeah, put it this way, it's not going well for them, and I think they wish they'd gone the electric route. So that was quite satisfying to hear.
Yeah. Well, I think how many hydrogen refuelers are there in the UK? I think is there still 10, or is there less than 10 now?
It's 2.
I think you need fleets to buy into it. You need a bit to create a business case of putting a hydrogen dispenser in. You need the likes of your DPDs and your Royal Mails and people like that to have clusters in business parks around. Clusters of demand around a hydrogen station to make it work. That's where you might start to see it if you get big fleets of trucks that are all using it. But yeah, I mean, the car side of things is I think if it's going to happen at all, it will happen after that. I think we've got a good solution for cars already, so I think it's going to take a while for anything else to take off in the background.
So Foxhound Folly's just put in, if you need some feedback, a small transducer on the motor casing widened so the audio could do it. It's something that we mentioned in the video, and I'll talk to Alex because I already spoke to him about the video I did this weekend, because I think you'll love it, mate. Coming out this Wednesday. What else we got here? It's funny how the roles are switching on sound. The iconic 5N sounds better than a Merc CLE53 now. Half the folks waiting for H2 probably think they're going to be combustion engines. Yeah, hydrogen fuel cell cars are electric cars anyway.
Well, if you look at the truck manufacturers, a lot of them are being quite smart about this. The fact that they're designing their platforms to work as an electric truck, but the option can be a big battery pack or a hydrogen fuel cell on the same platform. So it's the same base truck, but just how you fuel it is going to be slightly different.
So it will be maybe some hydrogen in Europe, but I'll tell you what, the amount of hydrogen in the UK, I think, is going to be so limited. And for people who think there's going to be hydrogen cars, I mean, yeah, like I said, unless something very dramatic appears out of nowhere, it's never going to happen. But you know, I think I'm just getting so tired of like even replying to it. It's just like I ignore a lot of it.
What I think is there's this sense of it's like, why has it got to be one or the other? It doesn't have to be one or the other. The two can coexist quite neatly. And I just think if hydrogen, I think I must have said this on here at least 2 or 3 times before, hydrogen's either going to sink or swim on its own. I think, let it develop. And if it really is a flop, it's going to flop. The market will decide on these things. And I just think tool in the toolbox. let it develop. It's a complementary technology for EVs in many ways anyway. It relies on batteries, motors, inverters, all the other bits and pieces you need for EVs. That can help, but I don't see it being something that will come in cars first. There's no way.
Yeah, and I think with the hydrogen thing, it's what people need to be honest about. People say EVs are expensive now. I mean, if you look at some of the stories that are coming out of people who bought the hydrogen cars in California and stuff, how much they're paying to do 100 miles, it makes an EV look cheap even at the expensive rates.
Yeah.
This is where it comes in with trucks as well. I mean, there's the US Department of Energy did a study on total ownership costs for hydrogen and electric versus diesel for long-range trucks and for other different truck applications across the states. And the break-even points are obviously different depending on application. So for local trucks, EVs start to kick in, start to become cost positive during the 2020s. But it's interesting that on the long-range trucks, so your long-haul freight stuff, they actually break even with hydrogen. They calculated you break even with hydrogen in 2030 and EVs in 2035, which is quite interesting. So again, I think it's that kind of, it'll be from the top down, and you'll need to put it on the stuff that's doing ridiculously high mileage in order to kind of make it make any sense. And even then, as you say, the infrastructure's got to be absolutely everywhere in the United States to make it make sense.
Well, the example that I was talking about before, they were originally, when they set about purchasing the hydrogen truck, there was a cost parity between electric and hydrogen, but now hydrogen's gone up a load, and now they're not even using green hydrogen. They're just getting whatever hydrogen they can get hold of. And what is the point in that? Because at the end of the day, it's all about, I don't like talking about net zero and all of that stuff, but it's all about, being greener and, making sure that the energy use is as green as possible. It's probably the best way I can put it. It's just like, and it just echoes the fact that it's going to be beneficial for certain companies who sell the oily golden stuff, and that's, I think, where a lot of the FUD is coming from as well anyway. So yeah,
it's all fake. None of it's going to take off. We'll just be using e-fuels in a few years anyway.
Oh yeah, e-fuels, they're definitely going to be the future. Definitely the future. I mean, don't get me wrong, they probably will be the future, but for classic cars, it's not going to be mainstream. It's just not that bad. But yeah, I mean, it's always the same old arguments, and I think a lot of people just aren't moving on because it's just not. I don't think the EV crowd. I know there's a lot of people working hard to just dispel a lot of the myths out there, but I don't think there's enough, because there's much more. I think there's a lot more petrol heads that, or people in that particular camp, that they're shouting louder, and whoever shouts louder wins at the moment. And I think that they are making, although there's all the things in progress, and there is a lot of progress in the the electric transition. I'm seeing so much at the moment. It's great in my new job, but it's really quite it's not ideal, because it's slowing down progress.
Part of the issue is as well is there's an awful lot of black and white discussion about this. Is that you tend to either hear people saying that EVs are absolutely the best thing ever and will suit everyone, and everyone should switch straight away, overlooking the fact that there are some practicalities involved. In most cases, it's a very palatable experience. That's obviously, we all know that's the case. But there are still places where it doesn't work quite so well, and there are still people who it won't suit quite so well. And it's a case of kind of accepting that there are still little niggly challenges along the way, but being positive about it, but also kind of trying to be realistic about it as well. I think that's really important, because unfortunately, if you do get people who are way too, I understand the enthusiasm behind it, but if you come across as blinkered, you do find that people tune out. They don't want it. They want to go, well, yeah, but what about this? And you have to be able to answer those questions as well. You have to kind of accept some of the practicalities that come with going electric as well.
Absolutely. And I do understand that I think we all understand that there's people that drive ICE cars that actually will benefit them more than having an EV. But I think it's the fact that there's the crowd of EVs are crap, they're this, they're that, they're blah blah blah, which like you say, it's having, and this is what this live was all about, just making sure we have something a bit more balanced rather than blinkered, just to have the conversations. Maybe we need to get someone on here that is so anti Who's your mate? What's that YouTube channel?
I was going to say
Mm-mm.
that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? I don't think he'd come on, to be honest.
Oh, I would love to have a chat to him. That would be good fun, especially because he's a used car buyer, like I was. So not that I've ever seen him buy any cars, but there we go. So yeah, it's one of those guys. Everyone that's listening at the moment, probably regular listeners, and we really appreciate your support. Is there any particular subjects you want us to cover in the near future? Because we don't want to keep going over the old stuff like this sort of stuff. I thought it was worth tackling. But yeah, if there's any subjects that people think, oh, do you know what, that's not actually being covered very well, then we'll definitely focus on it. But I'm just going to go. Oh, there's quite a few comments here I haven't actually tickled. So let's have a look. You can buy a 2010-year-old ICE that lasts another 20 years instead of buying two 30k EVs.
Well, that's talking about the category we talked about earlier. There are people who will spend like £2,000 on an ICE car.
Yeah, that is where there is a gap, and I do say this to people: you can buy a £2,000 EV, but if you're looking at sort of iMeves and Leafs and stuff, where they're very much, for most people, will still need to be a second car. Whereas you could go out and buy, as you say, a £2,000 Focus, Mondeo, Golf, take your pick, Astra, whatever. And you could drive it to Scotland tomorrow without really thinking about it. Whereas with a Leaf, I think you'd probably it's doable, but I think you'd struggle.
I think you'd have to. I mean, again, it's a generalisation. You'd have to take 10 examples of lots of different cars and look at the life of the next 5 years of that vehicle and look to see what that ICE vehicle costs against actually just buying an electric car for that much money in the first place. But again, it depends on how you're funding it, how you're financing it. There's all these many variables. So sometimes it's really, really difficult to quantify even.
People talk about uneconomical repairs and things on batteries and things of vehicles that old. I mean, I know somebody who's got an automatic Mondeo, fully functional car, starts, runs, drives, but there's something wrong with the auto box, and as a result of that, it's scrap. So people talk about batteries, but once you get to a certain age, regardless of what's under the bonnet, you get anything seriously wrong with it, and it'll be scrap anyway. It's not really changing anything. And the battery, obviously. The battery in an EV can then go on and be used in other things as well, which you can't do so much with the
uneconomical repair. I think there's still people, again, on my TikTok as well, that they're just like, oh yeah, all the batteries, it'll be a problem. It's like, do you not even know that you can recycle them? And the fact that they're, people talk about the carbon footprint. That's another one. The carbon footprint, they're worse for the environment. It was like, actually, when you take into consideration, producing the oil, extracting the oil, refining the oil, and the emissions. And the fact that electric batteries can be recycled, actually EVs are a lot better in that respect. In 99, if not slightly less cases. Michael Good, it's that odd time of year again. Ran a couple of local errands today, spent 2% of battery, but gained 3 miles range. That's a good one. I don't think I've had that before on any of mine. The average battery life of an EV is 10 years. Yeah, I think it does tend more on age than mileage, I think, with EVs. From what I've seen.
Tied up in warranty discussions. You've seen some quite long warranties on batteries, but it's one of these silly things where it gets kind of put into one camp or the other. I mean, yes, you can get an 8-year warranty on an EV battery, but you're talking about a 30% degradation. It's not talking about something where it will be close to. But I actually think that most manufacturer warranties are quite pessimistic as far as degradation is concerned anyway. I would say you're probably looking at 10 to 15% degradation after that period of time. I don't think you'd be looking at anywhere near 30% loss. You can't go X or Y off as a warranty of 8 years and have many thousands of miles on it, because that's not really telling the full. As we were saying, a few minutes ago, it's a case of kind of going, yes, but also yes, but bear this in mind, understand, got to understand the full picture with it. I mean, 30% loss of range is quite significant on something where it's like on our Rifter, that would be quite a large loss of range. That would make quite a big difference to using it.
But I think wasn't there some?
Sorry, go on, you go, Kevin.
Wasn't there some research that Nissan did, which they reckon their batteries will be still usable after 25 years? So, I mean, how many ICE cars would be left after 25 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the typical thing is where people say I've had this car for 25 years, and then you find out it's had a new gearbox, it's had a new engine, but it's not obviously not had a new engine, it's had a refurbished engine. So I think it's difficult to say that we haven't had that long enough. But, I've seen 5-year-old cars, sort of the Hyundai stuff, and the batteries are still showing 100% state of health because they've only lost stuff from the unusable range. So you're thinking, well, even if it loses 10%, that's still a 250 mile plus range car.
And it's supply and demand as well, isn't it? Because as these vehicles get older and there is a bigger market of, a larger fleet of these vehicles on the road, you're going to have more demand for aftermarket services where people can do modular repairs of batteries and find workarounds for them. And you also have a bigger supply of second-hand batteries and stuff. And you wouldn't, let's go back to the Mondeo example I mentioned before, you wouldn't kind of, just because you need to replace the gearbox, you wouldn't go back into your local Ford dealer and buy a brand new gearbox off the shelf to get that car back on the road, would you? You'd buy a second-hand one. And even then, it's an uneconomical repair due to the labour involved. But whereas it probably wouldn't be with a battery replacement, you'd buy a second-hand battery of a similar age that was still working, or modules from it, and get it back on the road. So it's swings and roundabouts for both, like with any old car, isn't it?
Well, Fluffy Gaming has come back. He went away. It looks like he's come back. He's found the example of 21 plate Tesla Model 3. I'm guessing it's I'm not going to say short range this time, standard range LFP, and it's got 96,000 miles on it, and you get a home charge of 545. Is this a good deal? It is a little bit of a stab in the dark, I suppose, in my mind, because I know that LFP batteries can do 2,000 to 3,000 cycles, whereas NMC batteries can do predicted 1,000 to 1,500 cycles. I think my Tesla's done at least sort of 800-900. So it's like, okay, do you go down the LFP route, go for the higher mileage, save 1,500 quid with the charger involved? It is a little bit, in my mind, it is a bit of a risk. It is a calculated risk. But do you actually, instead of going for 95,000 mile 21 plate, and go for a standard range or a long range with that mileage, and buy it for sort of 15 grand? Bearing in mind, if you're that bothered about the electric boot, there is aftermarket electric boot things that can be fitted. If you didn't know that, Fluffy Gaming. What about you guys? I mean, would you? I know you guys aren't Tesla bods like me, but what's your thoughts on buying a proven brand for mileage on an LFP for that sort of money?
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with it. The battery degradation thing doesn't bother me at all. We own our EV outright. It's not leased or anything. I'm not worried about battery life at all. The 30% degradation thing, I'm as much as I will explain that to people when they talk about the warranty thing, I will then go on to say I don't see them degrading in anywhere near that level, and I'm just not concerned about it at all.
Yeah, and I don't think the cycles are going to be an issue, because actually they're kind of full cycles, and I think even the manufacturers are finding the batteries are lasting much longer than they anticipated. If we discount the ones that don't have thermal management, which are the Nissan Leafs, I think they're managed so much better than they ever have. I mean, you think about your mobile phone, how you wreck the battery in it when you put it on a wireless charge and take it off and it's boiling hot. Things like that have more of an effect on it, and EVs, they're not allowed to do that because the manufacturer doesn't really want you making a warranty claim on your battery.
Equally, I can't remember who it was. It was somebody early on was saying about the breaking that cycle of trying to get people's heads around, yes, your laptop, your phone or whatever, the battery's wrecked after X number of years. But actually, as a mobile phone designer, there's no point in engineering a mobile phone to last for 10 years, because after 2-3 years, it's in a top drawer somewhere, not doing anything. Whereas a car obviously has to be designed to last that much longer. I think it's something, obviously, and it's something that needs kind of discussing and being aware of. But I think it's one of those things where I think as we go on, we're already seeing longer and longer warranties, and I think we'll also see that degradation issue being taken out of warranties. I think they must be confident they'll be nowhere near that. They don't want to be replaced. They don't want to take the risk on having to replace batteries after X number of years, do they? So I think they're obviously very confident they'll be nowhere near it. But I think as you start to see these vehicles get older and they've got more data to go back on, I think you'll see more confidence in the warranties as well. I'm very
Yeah.
sure of it.
I mean, I'm confident. I suppose to switch it around to my previous comment about it being a bit of a risk, I'm really confident because I haven't done the number of battery tests I've done on mine, which has now done 110,000 miles, that mine's going to easily achieve 200,000. So yeah, I think maybe that is the right choice if you want the 21 model without the chrome and with the heat pump and all the good stuff. So yeah, maybe that is a good deal. But I would suggest that maybe in October, I think there's going to be a few more EVs hitting the market after the new plate. So maybe just hold on a little bit longer. Just as an engine can be rebuilt, so can an EV battery. Yeah. Individual cells can be replaced. Yeah. There is an increasing number of independents who can do this. Michael, nailed it. Computer branch line. Bonjour, ça va? Comme ci, comme ça, etc. All right, thanks. I'll look tomorrow for less miles. I think for that kind of money, like I said, I think there's going to be some more hitting the market. So yeah, just don't just go and buy the first one that pops up. Just wait, see what the market's like. And I think I'm going to say this now, guys, but I've got a feeling. I've got one of those feelings again, guys. That, should I be spending £8,000 on a used MG ZS, which has got, I don't know, 80,000 miles, has to be white or black, or should I maybe waiting for these December deals that are going to come out? Because I guarantee there's going to be some absolute stonkers. But on that point, I know that we looked at EV deals, lease deals, etc. about 3 weeks ago because I suggested, and we all suggested, there's going to be some cracking deals because of the ZEV mandate and manufacturers need to hit their targets. I had a look at the deals recently, and I reckon that they've not really moved at all, other than a Peugeot E2008 has come in to the mix, and it's about £190 a month on 36 months, £1,600 in, 5k a year. Which I thought, I don't know much about that car. Alex, can you help with that one?
Good car. Yeah, 2008 is a good car. I presume that's, well, if it's a new one, it'll be with the newer motor in it as well, I would have thought. So
okay,
much more efficient than the old one. So
that's a good one, is it? Good one to think
yeah.
about.
Because we had the Corsa with the same motor on the London to Brighton, where it did significant. It did well. It was near the top with the efficiency, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so BMW.
Forward, so the 136 horsepower motor, which is the one we've got in the E-Rifter, is not particularly efficient. It's not awful, but it's not particularly efficient. The new one is a massive step forward. I mean, everything that's got that, even things like Astra and Mocha and other bits and pieces from within the Stellantis group, it's all very efficient for what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, to be fair, that was 36 months. I think if it was on 48 months, lasted 4 years, it would have had 20,000 miles by then. I think that would be even more tempting. Because if it cost me £8,000 and I had the car for 4 years, that would be bloody tempting. Because I'm pretty sure an £8,000 electric car, yeah, okay, the maintenance and all the rest of it, but being a new car, that is pretty tempting. So yeah, I think I'll keep an eye out, and yeah, I just want to make sure I get the best deal possible because I'm just like that. Mark Fowler, can you give some opinions on the best way to treat a battery? I don't do many miles each week. Should I charge after use back to 80% from, say, 68, or should I let it get a bit lower to 30% and charge? Great question, Mark. Guys,
we charge ours when it gets low. We don't top it up unless we need to, unless we're going for a long journey. It just up and down. Just as long as there's enough in there. Yeah, we don't get down below about 30%. Plug it in at that point just to make sure. Yeah.
So 30% is your marker, is it?
Yeah, I mean, unless I'm doing a trip in it, then I'm quite happy to take it quite close to the bottom. But yeah, I mean, in general day-to-day use, it's just that kind of, you never know when you might need to kind of go off somewhere the next day, and the range in ours is quite limited as well. So
like in an emergency, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. So I'm similar with mine. So basically, I just drive it and let it run down. So, I mean, there was an earlier issue which software was fixed on the Ioniq 5 that if you let it go below 20% for a long period of time, it would not charge at the 12 volt when it was parked, which could cause some issues. They've now fixed that in software. So But apart from that, I just drive it normally. The only thing is, what I don't do is taking advice from like you and say I'm going to leave it. Say you go on holidays for 2 weeks. I won't leave it 100% or plugged in for 2 weeks. If it's a long period of time, I'll leave it round about the 80% mark. But that's kind of where that 80% came in. The 80% came in because rapid charging is that's where it slows down, because it's like you're filling a bucket of water. As you get near the top, you slow down to stop it overflowing. But it's kind of when you're driving it normally, yeah, it gets to 100%. But basically, then I'm going to drive it the next day. So it's not a 100% for that long. And the 20%, I'll start to look at charging it, because then I'm thinking, well, actually, my car's got probably about 50 miles range in it then, so I may as well top it up. But I don't, like now it's at 68%. It's been like that all weekend because I didn't need to use it. It'll be charged fully tonight on the off-peak tariff.
There we go. Yeah, no, and I quite happily bring mine down to 2% when I go long journey. So Southampton and back, I'm going to do my best to try not to charge up. I'm going to go for a special Kevin Captain Efficiency run, and not use my cheating full self-drive, and see if that makes any difference, and make sure my tyres are the right and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I think if ours goes like less than 40%, I normally charge it back up to 80%, and I only charge to 100% if I'm doing a long journey. I know I'm doing it. But Mark has got another great question, and I'm not even sure if I know the answer to this one. Thanks. And what's considered a cycle in terms of the battery? How is it quantified if you pop up charge?
Yeah. So if I remember talking to you, and it's actually a cycle is from 0 to 100. So if you charge from 50 to 100, that's only half a cycle. It is actually the full 0 to full cycles. So that's why people think cars have done lots of cycles, but they haven't really. Because if you charge it twice from 50%, you've only done one cycle.
You can always trust in Ewan. He is the man at that sort of stuff. Funnily enough, I chatted to him Friday. I hadn't spoken to him for a while. He's a good guy, and he really does know his stuff. Sorry, Alex.
No, I was going to say with what you were saying about running it down to 2% on a long trip and charging it back up again. Obviously, it varies from car to car, but charging 0 to 80% is not flat; it's a curve. On our car, we're better off running it as close to empty as we can, because you get the miles back more quickly at the start of the charging cycle than we are plugging in more times on a trip and doing it
on diesel. Yeah, AC is obviously normal, but
just on trips.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, they charge really quick when they're really, really low. So, but yeah, I think that is a good time just to do to finish and just do a little bit of housekeeping. But like I said, guys, and everyone that's watching at the moment, please give us a like, please give us a share, and also whack in the comments now if you've got any particular subjects you want us to cover in the following weeks. I'm sure we'll keep talking about the deals out there. I think the Peugeot E208 was the only one that I saw that was really stood out as being a great deal. Like I said, I've got a video coming out Wednesday, an electric DIY car cave, including a Ducati motorbike, which is electric, and loads of other stuff, which is very, very good. And then we're getting a TVR update the following week. Ooh, so exciting stuff. But what about you guys? What are you up to this week?
Mostly at my desk this week. It's catching up on my road tests for Polestar 2 and EX30, which I've had over the last couple of weeks. So just kind of summarising my thoughts. I don't get a chance to walk around the EX30 now and kind of make notes as I go along. I'll have to do it from memory. It's
at least you got a story.
Wasn't expected.
So at least you got a story. So for me, I'm quite scary. This is I'm doing I'm the keynote speaker on the EV. It used to be called the EV Summit on Wednesday. So my first time doing a keynote speech in front of an audience. This is easy compared to that. You can't see people's faces. I'm sure it's going to be much harder seeing their faces.
Good luck with that, mate. I'm sure you'll smash it. A very interesting point that Foxhound Follies has just put in. Notice that the CHAdeMO/CTS converts are down to 750 now. Anyone tried one? Not me. No. There we go. We'll have to put that out to the anyone whack it in the comments. But I think that's it for now. We're bang on 9 o'clock. Let's keep it like the trains in a different country. And we'll see you all next week. Bye from me.
Bye from me.